here's one of the things I noticed while I was out on vacation. So what happens is, I think you guys know how it is. You stay on this resort, you're on the resort for a week, and there's other families. And what happens is you begin connecting with these families. And you begin chatting with these families and learning about each other. And a couple of things happen. One is, as I got to know these families and who they are and where they're from, then you begin noticing things about them. And I couldn't help but notice that there was a lack of health among the parents that then trickled down to the children. And here's what I mean by it. This is a perfect example. So the night before we left, there was a gentleman from Boston, and we had got a chance to talk quite a bit. And, his son was a little older than my son, but, they didn't necessarily play together, but they played around each other. And so we're talking, and he says, yeah, man, our children are getting really sick. We don't know what it is, but they're ill. And, when he was saying it, I was kind of looking at him like, what, you really don't know why they're ill? He's like, no, they they're sick, and the mom was kind of rubbing the daughter's head, and you could tell, the children looked out of it. And as they got off the elevator and I was riding up to my floor, I was just thinking like, wow, so many of us are unclear on how to properly care for ourselves. And here's what I mean. What I noticed is when many of us are on vacation, we completely check out. And here's what I mean by checking out. We check out of our normal routine, our health routine. So we check out of work, right? We check out of anything that has to do with anything back home. And when we do that, we also check out of our routine, our health routine, our eating routine. They were passing out sweets on the beach, popsicles, brownies. You got these sweet drinks. And so even if the children, of course, children don't drink alcohol, but they're feeding them these virgin pina coladas and daiquiris. So all this sugar is coming into the body in a way that it probably isn't normally coming into the body. And we expect to come back from our vacation vibrant and healthy after eating like that. And it just blew me away that they didn't understand why their children were healthy. And when I was looking at both of them, they both looked exhausted and they both looked unhealthy. And by the way, more unhealthy than they looked earlier in the week. And so, it kind of got me to thinking, and I'm like, wow. So I shared a stat almost a year ago about how half of Americans do not use all of their paid time off. And I really couldn't understand it. I'm like, why wouldn't Americans use their paid time off, right? Half. So that means a lot of you all listening, if you go to work week after week after week, when it comes to using all your paid time off, half of you aren't using your paid time off, okay? Now, I know some of you scratch your heads like, man, I use all mine and I need more. And when I was in corporate America, I made sure I used all mine. Even as an executive, I made sure I used all mine. It's paid time off, okay? Now, as an entrepreneur, it's a little more difficult to come by because you don't get paid when you're taking time off, unless you set up the proper vehicles, right? When you have the proper vehicle set up, recurring income, then you can be paid when you're taking time off. And so I'm thankful for that. But my point here is that half of Americans don't take time off. And I've been trying to figure out why. Now I'm beginning to understand why, because why would I take time off when I leave, when I pay to go somewhere else, and then when I get there, I'm eating things I normally don't eat. I'm drinking things I normally don't drink. By the time I leave, I feel awful, and I come back exhausted. And by the way, I have more work to do. There's no incentive there, and it just really got me thinking about us. We have to take better care of ourselves. Self-discipline. There's a beauty to self-discipline. And the beauty of self-discipline is that it creates freedom. It creates freedom all around you. It creates freedom in how you feel, in your energy levels, and what you're able to do when you bring self-discipline to your health and to your eating and to your drinking. Okay? And self-discipline in your relationship creates a stronger bond. Self-discipline in your work creates typically more opportunity for advancement, for growth, for revenue. Discipline, self-discipline, is one of the, I believe, major characteristics of personal freedom. And what I'm realizing is when you don't have self-discipline, even when you should be fully enjoying yourself, fully living life to the fullest, at the most vital parts of living, right? Fully alive, people are having extraordinary issues because there's a lack of self-discipline. And I just saw it. I mean, my wife and I were sitting by the pool. My wife had Legend. She was in the pool with him. And I'm watching a couple and their 2 children. And, the husband, he was just putting them back, putting beers back. The wife was drinking. And halfway through the day, I mean, they look exhausted. They're stumbling into the hotel, and it's not even 3:00 yet. And I'm like, what's the evening like for that family? Well, I mean, what will the evening be? You can't really fully experience life. And sometimes we're so used to just clouding out reality that we don't even get to enjoy the cool realities, the wonderful realities that we create. So anyway, I had to share that, and hopefully it hits home. It hits home. Self-discipline creates more freedom. It really does. And I'm so thankful for the work that my wife and I have done. Even when, it's funny. We cheated a couple of times on a vacation, and we're like, oh man, we cheated and we ate that. But we came back. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's feeling well, strong, rested. And yesterday spent time cleaning out the house. Spring cleaning. So with energy. But man, we got to do better. We have to do better. And self-discipline and building habit and building positive, healthy habits will truly help you live your best life. I promise you, it will help you live your best life. Gary said that the opportunity for entrepreneurs in the 21st century is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I agree with him. And he said the reason the opportunity in the 21st century is ridiculous for entrepreneurs is, number one, information is free. Information is free. And the internet is the single greatest and most complex instrument of all time. Now, if you remember the other weeks we went through, the Stone Age and the Metal Age, or the Iron and Bronze Age and the Middle Ages and the Industrial Age, all the way up to now, which is the Information Age, right? Information is free. And information, likely will always be free. The question is, are you going to take advantage of it? Because right next to information is entertainment. And entertainment is taking up so many of our attention that we're not getting the information that we need. Some of you have goals. You want to hit 6 figures in your business. You want to take your business to the next level. And the information is sitting right there for free. You just have to mine it. You have to mine the data. But instead of mining the data, you're so busy being entertained. You're so enamored by what's happening on Netflix and Amazon Prime that you never get the chance to download and read and absorb this information. And it's a tragedy. And guess what? Here's what he said about us as Americans. He said Americans are entitled. We think things should come to us for free. Some of you right now, you're frustrated about what's happening in your business. You feel entitled to more, but you're not willing to do more. And he talked about that at length. And you know Gary Vee. He's a lot cruder than I am. Okay, the guy's just not nice. He's gonna tell you who you are, what you are, and why you're that way. All right, I don't call you names. I don't do those type of things. I just speak the truth. And let me tell you something. If what I say triggers you, you do not want to listen to Gary Vee, because he will call you out your name in a minute. If you're one of the people who has a business, you're not properly taking care of your family, you're not hitting your revenue, and you're sitting up watching Netflix, you're watching television, he has a name for you. I'm not going to call you names. What I'm going to say is you got to do better. Now, the other thing he said about Americans is that we're full-time complainers. He said Americans are full-time complainers. They wake up in the morning, they punch the clock, and they complain. He said, and we're full-time complainers. And he said the problem with that is many of us we're complaining and we lack self-esteem. And at a time when you can go learn how to have self-esteem, you can go learn how to have confidence. He's right. There's a young lady that I know who has a confidence course. I mean, she teaches women how to have confidence. And if you go check out the course, you'll see that she's qualified, more than qualified, and more confident than ever. But here's the other thing he said that I thought was very interesting. Well, let me back up a little bit. Here's how we started, because I jumped into Technically Savvy. And he said that almost everyone fails because of their intentions. He said almost every entrepreneur or business person fails. Now, I believe, because I spend a lot of time in corporate America, that you can apply this to corporate America as well. That people fail in corporate America. We fail in corporate America because we don't have the right intentions. Now, what intention is he talking about? The intention that he talked about is what's in it for me, leading with what's in it for me. And he said the only way to succeed is to care about the people that you serve. Now, I've said this in terms of purpose. I've talked about this, but he was very, very direct. He said one of the reasons that many people's businesses are failing today is because they're not customer centric. The only thing they're thinking about is themselves. The big corporations, we see it happen all the time. When they're not thinking about the customer, they crumble. How much more for those of us who are entrepreneurs, that if we're not thinking about our customer, we're not thinking about the person that we serve holistically. And when you serve a lot of people, you can't necessarily take care of everyone. But the majority of the people that you serve, you don't know what they want and what they need, and serving them in there, then your business will be in trouble. So he talked about that. Then he also talked about how is it going to be like your services, and how do you know your services are going to be valuable to the consumer? And he talked about how right now attention on the internet is so valuable and it's underpriced. So, and I love this too, because he got underneath this entitlement that people have for followers. Because one of the things he said is everybody, including him, and Gary Vee has 5 million followers on Instagram. He said, when I started, I had 0 followers. And that's for everybody. Anybody who's crushing it in social media, when they started, they had 0 followers. Now, you can go out there, you can buy followers, you can do all types of things, right? Here's the thing, you're not going to have the engagement. But when you do the work, and this is what he talked about, when you're willing to do the work, post content people care about, talk about things that people care about, then people will follow. And think about that. People will follow. And for the first time in any time, ever, all time, you can create discipleship and followership from people who have never met you. That's what the internet provides. And he talked about how ridiculous and valuable and underpriced that is right now. Let me tell you something. If you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, and you have not bought an ad on social media, you are missing the mark. And if you wonder, well, Linal, how do you fill up a room for a summit? Linal, how do you ensure that your business stays relevant? Because I'm paying. I'm paying for Google ads. I'm paying for Instagram ads. I'm paying for Facebook ads. Somebody asked me before, they said, how many clients do you get from the radio? I said, very few. As a matter of fact, I've gotten two, listen to me, 2 one-on-one clients from being on the radio. 2 in 6 years. 2. Where do the rest of my clients come from? They come from my presence on social media. And they come from me talking to people while I'm on vacations, when I'm traveling, at airports, right? Creating, again, some type of followership. Who am I? What I do. It's the reason why I wear my own hat. It's the reason I wear my own t-shirt everywhere I go. People are like, what's that? What's Slay Your Goals? Oh, you can go to slayyourgoals.com. You can download my book. They do. They reach back out. They become clients, right? But we live in a time where if you're a business owner, you can use the internet in ways that no one else could use the internet before. And just 20 years ago, 2 decades ago, they couldn't do this. The reason, and get this, he said, the reason you're not posting on Facebook, on Instagram, there's some of you who are not posting. You're afraid. You have businesses, you overthink it, you're not posting the way you should. And he said, the reason you're not posting is because you're insecure and stupid. Now, Gary Vee said this. I didn't say it. He said, if you're not posting on Instagram and social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, he said, you're insecure and stupid. Now, let me share why he said stupid. The reason he says stupid, now think about the word stupid. Stupid, it means ignorant, okay? Now, he's saying the reason you're not posting is because you're ignorant of the opportunity. That if you post, you can take your business, you can take yourself to the next level. And those of us who are entrepreneurs, you are your business. You cannot separate the two. You cannot be on Instagram. You cannot be on Facebook doing ratchet things and then turn around talking about I have a self-development workshop. And then trying to figure out why ain't nobody coming. Because they know you was ratchet. Period. Why would I come to that? Period. So you are your brand. You have to always be your brand everywhere that you go. Everywhere that you go. Don't you know, as a life coach, I know you guys are watching everything I do. You're looking at the pictures we post. Is this guy really, I wonder if Linal really does eat right. Does he have a gut? Does he have a big stomach? I mean, I know you guys are looking. I am my brand. I get that. But here's the thing. I actually enjoy it. Why? Because I'm living my life aligned with my purpose. And when you live your life aligned with your purpose, it becomes easy because you're in integrity. Now, the other thing you said is success is happiness. Like, let's get it clear. I believe that. Success is happiness, and success is about smiling. He said the other reason a lot of people aren't getting business because they don't smile enough. Real simple. I was like, wow. I mean, it is real simple. And we know psychologically a smile attracts people. And I'm talking to people at resorts. Like I said, I'm talking to people at the airport, but part of it is because I have a happy disposition. So we have a ridiculous opportunity right now. The question is, are you seizing it? Are you taking advantage of it? Gary Vee talked about that. And he hit this real hard when he came out on stage. And I want you guys to listen to this. He said, are you willing to be happy and live a little more humbly? And he said the one thing that drives him crazy is how people buy dumb stuff. Now, he didn't say stuff. I'm saying stuff. But he said, we buy so much dumb stuff. So much dumb stuff. He said it's an epidemic of people buying dumb things. I was in a barbershop yesterday. And it's prom season. Everybody's going on prom. And the guys were talking about how much proms cost now. And I'm like, why would a prom cost $1,000? I can't understand why a prom would cost $1,000. And one of the guys said, well, man, my son went on prom and he had to get some shoes custom made. I guess he had spikes on his shoes. He had to get a custom jacket. This is a senior prom. And then I heard that they had 2 cars. The guy wanted to drive and the girl wanted to drive too. I'm like, what is... We're spending our money on ridiculous things. Let me tell you something. If Legend goes to prom, and here's the thing, I know I earn a lot of people. I guarantee you, we're not spending $1,000 and he got 2 cars. It's not happening. It's not happening. My wife and I were using coupons on vacation. We were trying to figure out, do we want to get the $30 buffet every day or can we just get something simpler? I mean, we got it down to $20 a day for breakfast. Man, and we're not struggling. And you see people go in, they're just dropping money, spending money on ridiculous things. It's crazy, but Gary Vee, he went into it. He said the reason we do it is because we're insecure. And insecurity is an epidemic right now. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic. So that's most of what Gary Vee had to say. He was phenomenal. I know some of you guys were there. Man. Oh, here's the last thing he said that I thought was powerful. And then I'm going to take this phone call. He said the amount of money you make correlates to the stress and anxiety that you can handle. The amount of money that you make correlates to the stress and anxiety that you can handle. Now, when he said that, I thought about our community. And there is research that proves that when a person's been through trauma, their executive functions don't work the same. Now, I want you to think about that. When a person has been through serious trauma, their executive functions don't work the same. Now, what is the executive function? Part of the executive function is the ability to plan and build strategy. And one of the ways that you make money is strategy. And I know that there are some of us who are struggling in business because of past trauma. If you don't think that all this stuff correlates, it all comes together. When he said it right away, I thought about our community. I said, man, so many of us have had trauma. And so how is that impacting our ability to make money? Because if the amount of money that we make correlates to the stress and anxiety that we can handle, and many of us are stressed out just trying to survive, that could be one of the reasons why there's such a significant impact, economic impact on the Black community. And we got to start with self-development. Self-development. For some of us, the first step of self-development is therapy. If you want to take your business to the next level, then it might just be that you need to sit down and invest in therapy. Heal the trauma so that way you can properly plan. Because if you find yourself anxious, stressed, and just, bogged down, like confused, it's likely that you've experienced trauma. And that trauma can be healed. And if you get the healing you need, then you can turn around and really begin to focus on your business in ways that you couldn't focus before. But we've got to put our money in ourselves. And when I say in ourselves, I'm not talking Louis Vuitton, Prada, Montclair. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about in self-development. It's time out, man. I got people who tell me I'm not paying for that an hour when I talk about coaching. But, you'll go buy $500 shoes, $1,000 purse. And you're still struggling. It doesn't make sense. We've got to pour into ourselves. We must pour into ourselves. One of the things that it talked about was our health. I think this is Amos Williams was talking about our health and how many of us believe that we're free, right? So slavery's over, we're free. And he talked about how many of us are still bound. And he talked about the different ways that we're bound, right? And one of the ways he talked about was health and diet. That many of us are still slaves to the slave diet. Now, I'm going to let you just sit there and think about that. Because we call slave food soul food. But it's really slave food. It's what we learned to eat when our ancestors were still slaves. And many of us are still eating like our ancestors did when they were captives and slaves. and it's messing with us. And it got a whole industry built on it, okay? I mean, that's why they know you're going to need blood pressure medication. And they know when you take the blood pressure medication, your kidneys are going to go out. And so they set it up. They just got DaVita Dialysis real estate all through our communities because they know that we're still bound. And many of us are still slaves, if not mentally. Mentally, if you're eating it, you're mentally bound. I mean, so you're still mentally bound. Still chains on the brain. We've gotta wake up. We've gotta get free. We gotta get free. Kevin O'Leary. He said 3 things that I firmly believe in. The first is, he said, if you're an entrepreneur and you can't sell any one of your products in 90 seconds or less, then you got a problem. Now let me be clear. When he said 90 seconds or less, he's like the ability to articulate what it is. Okay, the ability to articulate what it is. 90 seconds or less, right? You can't sell that product 90 seconds or less. You got to work on that. The second thing is you have to know what it is about working with you that is a great idea. The ability to sell yourself. Like, why would you work with me? And I say it all the time. Let me tell you, I know for a fact that in these United States of America, I'm one of the best coaches you can work with. Period. I've met a lot of them. As a matter of fact, I've met them internationally. I'll be in the Czech Republic in October for an international coach conference. Okay, I meet these coaches, I talk to these coaches, I know what they're working with. Now, when it comes to African Americans, I'm one of the best coaches you can work with. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I understand us. And it's not just because I am you, it's because I study us. All right, like I said, right now I'm reading this thick volume of the Black Power movement. I'm working on helping us better understand our identity. That's something I bring to my clients, my African American clients in particular, that you won't get somewhere else. I promise you that. But you got to know how to sell yourself, right? Number 3, you got to know your numbers. When I say people don't know their numbers, and I work with entrepreneurs, I'll say, all right, so how does this quarter look for you? They'll be like, I will pull it up real quick. They can't pull it up real quick because they don't know how. We got to do better. We got to know our numbers. You got to know your numbers. If you're working for somebody, you need to know your numbers. You need to know how much you put away in taxes in that first quarter. You need to know how much came in net. You need to know how much went out. Okay? You got to know your numbers. And it's one of the reasons a lot of us aren't wealthy. Top 3 things he said. And then one other thing he said that I thought was really powerful. I'm not going to share the rest because he talked about stocks and dividends and all that type of thing. And who knows, on the Slay Your Goals call, if you guys have questions about it, my members, you invest in stock, you want to know more, then we can spend some time talking about it next week on our call. Otherwise, I'm not sharing that with anybody else. Okay, or my clients, you can ask me in our calls. All right. Then here's the other thing he said. What are your time management skills? And he said the biggest differentiator between those that are wealthy and those that are not is their ability to manage time. How about that? How about that? Let me tell you something. Everybody that's listening, I can venture to say that 99%, because there's going to be one person that's, always, I'm sure, always saying the devil's advocate. No, that ain't me. But 99% of you want to be wealthy. But here's the big question. Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to do the work? Not just that, but are you willing to bet on yourself that you will be wealthy one day? What does that mean? Today, making the investments that will make you wealthy. I sat next to a mom and son, reminded me of my mother and I, when we used to go, my mom and I, we used to go to conferences like this all the time, okay? And this is part of how I got my start. My mom dragging me, hey, you should go here with me. You should go to this conference with me. And me sitting in the audience and listening to these guys. And then they would make this sales pitch. And I sat next to this gentleman and his mom. and he was expecting a baby. His baby's due in June, okay? And they were sitting there, and they were, every time somebody would sell something, they were debating it. So Kevin O'Leary, he had a guy come out talk about stocks and options and how to invest in calls and puts and leaps, etc. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, get on the internet. You can get the information for free, all right? And so they were sitting there, and she said, "It sounds too good to be true." And I looked at her and I said, "Everything you said is true." I said, years ago, and he was selling his package for $1,000. I think it was $897. He was selling this package. They're going to teach you how to trade. Teach you how to trade options, calls, puts, etc. Right? And by the way, when you go to these conferences, they're selling things. You can't get people like Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and Kevin O'Leary to come out just for free, right? I mean, they want to make some revenue. These guys are about making money as well as helping people, but they have to sustain themselves. And so she's like, "That sounds too good to be true." And I said, "No, it is true." I said, "I invested in something similar to that cost $5,000 back when I was 27 years old, about 15 years ago. Okay, it cost me $5,000. He's selling it for $900. Same software, same technology, same education. Sounds the same thing that I bought for $5,000 years ago." She said, "And what did you do?" I said, "I made $30,000 trading my first year." "Oh, wow, that's insane. How did you do that?" I said, "It took a lot of time. I had to do a lot of work." And I was straight with it. I said, "It took time. I had to research stock, learn stock." I said, "Now," she said, "Well, how do you do it now? Does it take as much time?" I said, "No. Now, I can just sit in the barbershop and listen to guys talk about a new brand. I'll go research the brand and be like, boom. I mean, I own stock in Nike. That's where I wear Nike. I own stock in Nike. And the reason I own stock in Nike is because they getting everybody out here hook, line, and sinker. So why not own options and leaps? Because I know the stock's going to go up because y'all going to keep buying. Anyway, you got to try. I mean, we can be so critical and leery, right? And she sat, her and her son sat there all day, and they discussed these different campaigns and different things. They never got up and went and bought anything. And here's the funny thing. Almost everything they sold at some point I had bought. It's not magic, folks. You gotta bet on yourself. You just do. All right. So I could keep going. But I think you all get the point. But I was blown away because this guy, he has a baby coming. He's working, 50. I asked him, how many hours do you work? I work 50 to 60 hours. I don't have time to learn any of the stuff. And I'm thinking like, oh, man, you're going to stay stuck, bro. If, take some PTO, some paid time off to learn it if you have to. But you should learn. You got a child on the way. They had this thing on real estate, right? They had this thing on stock investing. I mean, they were selling some of everything. Then there's a Millionaire Mind Intensive coming to Chicago for free, and they still couldn't fill it up. I don't understand it. I think they had about 4,000 or 5,000 people. Joel, you were there. You tell me, you're on Facebook. I think they had about 4,000 people there. They wanted 500 seats. And at the end of the thing, they're still trying to sell. They're still trying to sell a free seminar on the Millionaire Mind. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? People won't put aside 3 to 4 days to learn how to become a millionaire. How do you think people become a millionaire? You think it just it downloads into their brain while they're asleep? No, man. You gotta do the work. You gotta be willing to be uncomfortable and do the work. But many of us, we want to go to the next level, but we're just hoping that somehow we evolve there. We Charles Darwin there. It don't work like that, man. Not at least for this generation and the next. If you believe in evolution, even if you believe in evolution, it's going to be another millennia before you can think like that. So right now, you got to do the work. It is getting more and more difficult to eat healthy. And let me tell you, guys, something, especially pescatarians. So my wife and I, we only eat certain kinds of fish. Salmon, cod, herring, halibut. Typically stay away from swordfish, shark, things like that. Either one, they have high mercury levels. Tuna has high mercury levels, or they have high in cholesterol. But then there's another type of fish. I call it the garbage fish, right? This is your catfish. Let me start with worse to better, okay? Your tilapia is the worst fish. Horrible. If you knew what they fed tilapia to make you throw it back up. I'm just being straight, okay? Horrible fish. Tilapia, they feed in China, where a lot of the tilapia comes from. They feed the fish literal feces, okay? They take the feces from the farms, mix it in with other stuff, and throw it in the tilapia pools. And the tilapia eat it and get fat, and then they package it up, fillet it up, and ship it over here for us to eat. And you need to start asking if you're pescatarian, right? Even if you're not pescatarian, you're talking about eating healthy. You need to start asking, well, what kind of fish is this? Because I guarantee you that most of it's tilapia. And the reason it's tilapia is because it's the cheapest kind of fish. And it's cheap because they're feeding it garbage. That's why it's cheap. And so but the information is free, folks. You can find the top 3 fish just by Googling what's the best fish to consume. But anyway, I say that because on vacation, my wife and I, we had a difficult time eating. But the cool thing about discipline is you just won't, like the other things aren't an option, right? It's just not an option. So you're like, well, I can't have that. I'm not going to have that. So what else can we do? I have a phone call that I want to take from one of our Slay Your Goals members, Melvina. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So, Melvina, you're calling in because you had a phenomenal win and you emailed it to me.
I sure did.
And you emailed it to me, and when I saw the email, I said you have to share. Partly because I know your journey, but one of the things that I don't do is I don't talk about clients. I don't talk about my client wins or what my clients accomplish. So you got to talk about it. So I just want you. When did you become a Slay Your Goals member?
So I became a Slay Your Goals member right when you opened the membership. I believe that was in 2017.
Okay, in 2017. All right, and so just kind of tell everyone listening why you purchased it and what your goal has been since you purchased it.
Well, first of all, my mom, she had told me about the membership. She listens to you all the time. And so she was like, Melvina, you have to listen to Linal Harris. He's beginning this Slay Your Goals membership. I think this will be good for you. And so once you opened up the membership, I signed up immediately, right before the new year. And so what made me sign up was because I had been on this journey of becoming a licensed Illinois teacher since 2011. And I had a lot of obstacles, a lot of adversity, just a lot of problems. And I'm just like, I know that I need to get out of my own way in order for me to reach this goal. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure exactly what I needed to, rid myself of in order for me to, make this large gain. So specifically, I had already taken the test a total of 13 times, and that had built up this wall of fear. So hold on.
So you real quick, you took the test 13 times before you became a member?
I had taken the test then maybe about 9 times.
Okay, about 9 times. Okay, so you're taking the test 9 times. By the way, I want you all to hear this, because this is what persistence looks like. When I talk about persistence, this is what I mean. You took the test 13 times, Melvina. 13 times, but go ahead and continue, please.
So I had taken the test a total of 13 times. You have to pass what's called the TAP. And prior to it being the TAP, it was the basic skills. And I had taken that exam by itself a total of 9 times. Then an alternative exam was the ACT. And so when I finally started with the coaching, I remember one of our coaching members, one of our coaching calls, you were telling me, it was like, well, Melvina, do you believe that you can pass this test? And I was like, you know what? I never looked at it from that context. And you were like, well, I could coach you, but if you don't have the power of belief backing it, then you won't pass the test. And so we came up with a declaration surrounding it, and the declaration, I remember saying it, I wrote it down, I woke up to it every morning, I went to sleep to it every night, and literally.
So wait a second, so you did this is what I love too to hear, and it's part of the reason I wanted you to kind of just share your story. So number one, I want you all, so what Melvina's talking about is, and she didn't share this yet, but Melvina put herself in the hot seat every month. Now, there are a lot of members out there, Slay Your Goals members, and there's certain members who always put themselves in a hot seat. Melvina was one of them, right? But she had a plan. She didn't care about what people thought, what people heard. She was like, I'm about to create my plan. Now, tell us the overall goal real quick as we kind of go through this. What was the overall goal that we created?
The overall goal was to double my income, and around
we got to pause on that because you guys just heard to double her income. To double her income, all right? Now, so we're doing the coaching, and you're looking at the declarations and continue from that place.
And from there, I just remember after that conversation, I just began to connect the coaching, the declaration, and my faith. All like, I synced it all. And so when I went to go take the test for the 13th time, at the time it was the ACT, I had got a 21 on it, and I needed a 22 in order for me to have started my program that I'm in. And so I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally like 1 point away from actually being able to get into this program.
I say resistance.
And so to go beyond the resistance and like really slay it, break through it, I ended up finding my high school transcript. And based on the state of Illinois, they do this thing called super scoring. So with super scoring, they were able to take my highest sub-scores of the sub-test, and they were able to average it to a 21.5. And with that, because of rounding and math, 21.5 rounds up to a 22.
Boom.
And so I got into the program. And so now... And
that's just one step. So now you're in the program, right? But there's more.
Now in the program.
And I want you all to hear something, because as this is happening, right? Remember, she said she signed up in 2017. It's 2019. As this is happening, Melvina's doing the work. She's emailing me. As a Slay Your Goals member, I'll respond to your emails, right? She's emailing me. She's jumping in the hot seat every month, getting in the hot seat, getting the value of the coaching, and forging forward, right? And some of her requests, she was talking like you shared, Melvina. You were saying, I don't believe, and this, that, and the other. She's getting the coaching, so now you're in the program.
Now I'm in the program, and of course, resistance continues to show up. So in order for me to secure or able to meet this ultimate goal of doubling my income, now that I had to do what's called the EdTPA. And the EdTPA is what secures my licensure in the state of Illinois. We had worked through time management, my context of procrastination, and all of that. And so when it came down to submitting this video analysis and teacher analysis profile, everything that could happen happened.
Yeah. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. And let me ask you a question, Melvina.
Okay.
If you weren't being coached through that, so mind you got into the program, and I remember that coaching session when you came and you were like, I got a deadline, etc., and we coached through that. If you weren't being coached, what do you think would have happened?
I would not be a state of Illinois licensed teacher as of today. The coaching helped me to see from the context of where I needed to see. And every call, you were very patient. You pushed me through it, and you helped me to see through a more clear and you helped me to see through a more clearer lens. And it was a lens of essence. It was a lens from a creator as opposed to a deficit lens. And without that, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Well, and by the way, my job is to support the work you're doing. You did the work. You did the work. You jumped into the hot seat. You sent the emails and you took the coaching, because then I would send you your practices and you would actually do the practices. So my job, by the way, I would be there every Sunday, right? Every second Sunday, whether you joined or not. So you did the work. You got into the hot seat. Then you took the coaching. You applied the coaching. You did the work. Congratulations to you for that. So now what?
Now what? So I am in a very great position now that I have this licensure, and with my program, I'm guaranteed a position. And so as of next school year, the goal that we set out for will be met. Like, I'll be signing my contract and all of that.
So you are literally about to double your income.
I'm literally about to double.
How much money did you spend on Slay Your Goals?
My Slay Your Goal membership was $24 every month.
Oh, man. So you signed up early. I was telling people, take that $24, take that $24. It's $37 now. Would you pay $37 now?
I still would. I would pay $37 because it's worth it.
It's worth it. And how much altogether did you spend?
I heard in your broadcast.
You gotta know your numbers. I can tell you. Look, well, I mean, it's 2 years, right? 2 years, $24 a month over 2 years. I mean, people can do the math. That's 48 months at $24. Are you gonna make more money than that now?
Absolutely, way more money.
Was that what you call a good investment?
That was the greatest investment that I've made to date.
Wow. Look, I'm telling you guys something, okay? And Melvina, I just want to congratulate you because you did the work. But if you're willing to do the work, you need to become a Slay Your Goals member. Slay Your Goals member. The price is not gonna do anything but go up, right? People paying $37 a day. Melvina will never have to pay $37 ever. She can continue to get the coaching at $24 because she came in early, right? And there are other members who have that same $24. I have a group coaching member who's like, I'm not giving that up, right? But let me tell you, if you want to become a member, all you have to do is go to slayyourgoals.com. Okay, go to slayyourgoals.com and go through the pipeline. Go through the process. It's going to ask you to download the book. If you already downloaded the book, doesn't matter. Put your email address again, and then go to the bottom of the next page and say no thank you to the audio. If you already have the audio, if you haven't bought the audio, you should buy the audio of the Slay Your Goals book. And then go to the membership site, and it will take you straight through it. For those of you who are on Facebook, I'll put the link at the end of the show in the Facebook stream. But the investment Melvina made, $37 a month. I mean, $24 a month, and she's about to double her income. And Melvina, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. You did the work, and this is what coaching looks like when someone is willing to do the work. I am not a magician, right? So when she's like, Linal, thank you. No, thank yourself. I'm just serving my purpose, right? And that's to help people live the best life possible. Now, Melvina, I got to ask you, is twice the income going to help you live your best life?
Absolutely. It sure is.
I know if I double my income, that my best life will be a better life. So, and that's just how it continues to go, right? So, Melvina, thank you so much for being willing to come in and share your story. Be vulnerable, authentic, because I think sometimes we get embarrassed, by sharing our stories. And part of your story is that you failed 13 times, but you got up every time. You knew you needed help. You got the help. And now you're about to double your income, guaranteed to double your income based on the work that you did. You hit the goal that you set. And I'm so excited for you. And I can't wait to hear the next challenge, the next goal that you set, and support you with that goal as a Slay Your Goals member. Thanks for the phone call.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. All right, man. That's Melvina. She was also at the summit. Just phenomenal work. A young lady single mom, who's basically putting it all on the line and saying, I want to do better, and is creating it. This is exactly what I'm talking about here. And here's the difference. I'm not selling you all something for $1,000. This program could be that. I've been told that it's underpriced by other people in the industry. You underpriced the program. Why are you coaching people for that much money? I said, because I care about my community and I want to make sure that my community can get this. Some people say, why are the calls on Sundays? I go to church on Sundays. Man, I know your church got 3 services. Go to the 7 a.m. and then get on the call at 9:30, right? Or go to the 11:30. Get on the call, right? But, people we want everything handed to us. And Melvina was willing to do the work. And let me tell you something. Melvina would be in her car sometimes. Like, I'm sorry, my son's in the back. The members know. It's like, my son, I said, this is your call. It's cool. If it's somebody else's son in the back, I'll tell them to mute. But this is your call. And she'd be on her way to church or going wherever it is she was going, getting coached, and then taking the coaching and double her income. Congratulations, Melvina. I'm so happy for you. And anybody else who wants to become a member, go to slayyourgoals.com. Coaching works, folks. It not only did it work for me, but it can work for you too. One of the things I found out about myself in coaching is my survival mechanism, my normal way of being, my stressed out way of being would like to make it complex. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't accomplish some of the things I needed to accomplish, because I made it complex. And he talked about how complexity is the enemy of completion. And then he shared this success cycle. And I really like this. And what he talked about is how we all have potential. All of us have potential. I talk about this ad nauseum, right? But in order to turn that potential into success, you have to follow this cycle. Right? And the first part of the cycle is potential has to be given to action, right? So if you have potential, then you got to move towards action. And then the action has to create the desired result. You just got done listening to Melvina. She took action after action after action. Some of y'all would have quit. But her potential, her success had to follow this cycle. And so potential to action to results, right? And then when she got the results she wanted, then she had to believe. Remember, she talked about her belief? She had to have a certainty and belief that she could make it through that program, that she could pass that test. And so potential, action, results, your belief and your certainty that you can. And then that creates brand new potential and takes you to the next level. So he talked about the success cycle. And then he talked about the state of being and how your state of being means everything. And your state of being is correlated to your certainty and belief of self, right? Now, this is what I do in ontological coaching. Right now, I have a coaching group. And this coaching group is, they start this week, but we spent the last 2 weeks in April in orientation, all right? And part of what we've been talking about is what ontology is and who they're being, like who you're being. And this next month is going to be all about who they're being. Before we even go into their goals, we're going to go into who they're being first. Now, why is that so important? Who you're being impacts your potential, the type of action you take, and the type of results you get. Melvina then passed that test until she believed, right? Her belief and certainty, who she was being, changed. Sometimes it's not about your intellect. Some of us we're smart. We got it. We got it. We just don't believe we got it. And because we don't believe we got it, we don't get it. But if you can change your being, right, which is what I do with my one-on-one clients, what I do in group coaching, and what I do with people in the hot seat. Ontological coaching is all about who you're being. And if we can shift who you're being, then that shifts everything about your potential, the action you take, and the results you get. Then he talked about how momentum works, and momentum is everything, and how to use momentum, positive momentum, to supercharge your certainty and belief. So what does this mean? I'm gonna keep using Melvina. So Melvina just had a phenomenal win. Did you hear me ask her what's next? The reason I asked her what's next is because she has gained momentum. So now that she has this momentum, she's taken on the goal of doubling her income, and she's completed that goal. So now, as her coach, what I'm saying is what's next is because we want to ride that wave of success right into the next thing, right? So, Melvina, if you're not sure, get in the hot seat for next week's Slay Your Goals coaching and gain clarity on what's next right now to make sure that you can ride the wave of momentum. Because when you're winning, that's momentum. And many of us will experience one win and we'll be like, woo, and stop. That's the biggest mistake you can make. Because you want to ride the wave of momentum right into the next win after. You ever seen somebody like, why they keep winning? Like, man, haters are looking like, they just hating it. And it's that I got one thing to hate, and then there's something else to hate, and something else to hate behind that. Because this person just keeps winning. I don't understand why they keep winning. Momentum. Then he talked about how we live in a victim culture. Now this, I firmly believe. For those of you who went to Africa with me, we know what a victim is. For those of you who want to go to Africa, hey, the seats are filling up. They're filling up. But we still have seats left. You can go to murdermediocrity.com and sign up. Now, why am I saying that? Because for those of us who are African Americans, sometimes we feel like victims. And this is one of the reasons why I have the identity tour, the transformational tour of Ghana, and really learning who you are. Because for those of us who are African Americans, who are black, however you identify, when you take this tour, it transforms something. And one of the things that you can no longer be is a victim. You can no longer be a victim after you see how the victimization of your ancestors and the reality of what you have now, no matter how tough it may be, and the reality of what they went through to survive to make sure that we're all here. You begin to really understand who you are, which is why this trip is so powerful. So powerful. And so you can get the details on murdermediocrity.com. Join us in Ghana in October. The dates are November 24th through October 24th through November 3rd. So we can reach out to you and make sure that you get signed up before those airline prices go up. Okay. But we live in a victim culture, and under stress, we blame others for our circumstances. Now, I love this one. Brene Brown talks about this as well. But let something stressful happen. Especially those of us who are married. And I got to work on this all the time, because something can happen. I could be missing something, and I'll be like, oh, Pam, man. Like, immediately I'll blame it on my wife. And I got to process and be like, wait a second. Are you sure you didn't misplace this? Or are you sure? And, half the time I did. The other half, she did. But no, I'm just playing. But we're very often looking to blame the other person all the time for our experience, for my experience. I'm blaming my wife for my experience. How crazy is that? When I control my emotions, I control my experience. But we live in a victim culture, and people just, we're used to being victims of everybody else. The waitress messed up my day. I had breakfast at that restaurant, and she destroyed my entire day. Like, how does somebody have that much power over you? But we give our power up. We like being victims. We are not our patterns. It's just a pattern. Now think about that. I'm going to go back to Melvina. If she believed that she was her pattern, right, she failed this test. If she believed that she was her pattern, she would not be where she is today. We are not our patterns. It's nothing more than a pattern. That's all. And there's always a way to create new change. New change. And I want you all to sit with that, because some of us have patterns of failure. You may have started businesses, you may have done things, you may have been married multiple times. And so you're like, that just doesn't work for me. Well, if that's what you believe, that's true. But know that you are not your pattern. It's nothing more than a pattern. And there's something that you need to learn so you can create new, lasting change. I mean, that's why I got coaching. I knew I was a horrible boyfriend. I couldn't hold down a relationship. I knew I wanted to take myself to the next level in certain areas of my life. I knew I wanted my well-being to be better. I didn't know how to do it. And so coaching helped me shift my patterns. And that's what a good coach can do, help you shift your patterns. All right, because you are not your patterns. It's just a pattern. Then he talked about failure. And he talked about how failure brings our energy down, and why motivation is not good enough when you're failing. What you need is strategy. And this is what the Slay Your Goals members are getting. This is what people in my group coaching sessions are getting. This is what my one-on-one clients are getting. They're getting strategy. And a one-on-one client, they get strategy that is created specifically for them, for their context, for their way of being, for how they think about things, what's happening in their family, right? They get that level of support. They get that level of strategy. Why? Because you're going to fail. And if failure brings your energy down, then you need support creating structures around that failure so you can continue. One of the main reasons I keep a coach, because I'm constantly failing. I'm constantly making mistakes. And so to keep my energy high, I'm creating structures around those failures so I can continue and keep my energy up. I love this part because he talked about how the way we use our body is important. And again, we're talking about Tony Robbins. And he talked about the high power pose. And he had a picture of Wonder Woman, right? And Wonder Woman was, for those of you on Facebook, she was doing this. She was standing there. She had her hands on her hips, and her feet were spread about shoulder length, a little more than shoulder length apart, for those of you listening. And she was in her power pose. And then he shared some science around the power pose, that when you step into a power pose, that your testosterone increases 20%. For women too, not just men. Your testosterone increases 20%. Your stress hormones, right? Cortisol is your stress hormone. Those levels decrease 25%. And your risk tolerance increases 33%. 33%. Think about that. Now, many of you all are watching the playoffs right now. And when you see these players come out on the floor, watch how they stand. Watch how they, before the game goes up, how they're, standing there, right? They're doing these things subconsciously, many of them, because they're trained athletes, but they're doing it for a reason. For anybody who knows, your testosterone levels go up, it gives you another level of aggression, right? This is the reason why your risk tolerance goes up. Another level of strength. Your stress hormones come down, it allows you to think clearer. This is again why, even in playoffs again, these guys, they dunk and they might stand there and they do the, they kind of celebrate it with some swag. Why? They can ride that wave of momentum we talked about. This is how they can hit that crazy next shot and the next shot and the next shot. It's all science. In 1974, Walmart had 78 stores. Kmart had 1,326. And the combined value of Sears and Kmart was 65 times that of Walmart. Think about that. In 1974. It's 2 years before I was born. Now, investors said Sam Walton, who is the owner of Walmart, would not be successful. And the reason they felt he wouldn't be successful is because with 78 stores and his locations, etc., They were like, you know what, this guy's just not going to be able to do it. What they didn't count on was his resourcefulness. His ability to be resourceful as a leader. Now remember, a few weeks ago we talked about effective leadership. When you are an effective leader, leadership becomes one of your resources. What was Sam Walton able to do? He was able to motivate his people to do things that Kmart and Sears employees just weren't doing. All right. He had managers who would drive for hours to pick up boxes of material that were on sale so they can make it, so they could get back to the store in time and put it up in their stores and sell it. He had employees who were willing to go to the next level. Why? He had resourcefulness as a leader, but resourcefulness overall as a competence. For those of us who are entrepreneurs, how resourceful are you? If you run into a problem or an issue, are you letting that thing just stop you? I mean, you can't get past it? Or are you sitting and thinking and contemplating and being as resourceful as you can be until you figure a way out? But comes down to how committed you are. Again, comes back to that emotional way of being. Failure is going to come. One of the things he said, failure is going to come. But if you're resourceful enough, failure doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then he talked about the number one skill of leadership is influence. And that starts with influencing yourself. The number one skill of leadership is influence. And the first thing you have to do is be able to influence yourself. And then here's what he said. This goes back to the other competencies we talked about. To influence someone else, you have to know what influences them. Remember we talked about respect and how respect was one of the characteristics of an effective leader. And you have to know what respect means to that person. Well, guess what? If you know what respect means to that person, you likely know what influences them as well. And so then as a leader, you can adequately influence them to take the actions that matter. But the problem is many of us as leaders, we don't even know our people. We don't care about our people. When is the last time you asked them just how they're doing? What's happening? How their children? How's the family? Because by asking those type of questions, you begin to learn what influences them. It's so important that we celebrate those wins. And what I learned from Tony Robbins is, like, celebrating the win, typically I make it an event or a moment. But what he said is you want to celebrate with every part of your physiology. Celebrate with your mouth, right? It should be a yell. Celebrate with your face in terms of a smile. Celebrate with your body. Maybe you're shaking your arms. But many of us taking so many losses that when you do win, it's time to let the world know. Let them know with a shout. Let them know with a jeer, with a shake. Let them know with a smile. But celebrate your wins, because winning is definitely part of living the best life. And we want to maintain momentum for those wins.
Join Linal Harris every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. here on WVON 1690 AM.